Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Monica, a co-lead of mobile.dev. So, today we have Harjot Pava with us. We are going to talk about the data science and the career path about in AI and ML. And yeah, Harjot, okay, so a little bit about Harjot. So he's a data science associate at ZS and he's a very good speaker. So we actually started our journey like almost together in a data science field. Yeah, Harjot, so you can share your learnings, what you have learned, and what's the skills that we all need to get into the data science or the AI/ML industries. You can share about this.
Sure, sure. Thanks for the intro, Monica. Okay, you can see my screen now. Let me jump to the presentation. So, thanks for the introduction, Monica. And yeah, I'm Harjot, and I'm currently working in the AI analytics industry at ZS Associates. So, I've been working in the advanced data science sector of that. And the reason that we're having this talk today is that we wanted to show a disparity between how the people think that skills that will get me in the AI industry differ from what actually the business needs. Now, that is why the topic of this talk is get noticed. That is what can give you an edge in the AI industry. Contrary to your beliefs, you might think that, okay, maybe I need to get better at getting good performance out of models, or maybe learning technologies such as Hadoop, big data, and all. But that's true. But this is just a small area where you can accelerate yourself, but a lot of things apart from these exist that will be helping you to get noticed. So the way that I have structured this talk today is in five parts. First of all, I want to downplay the buzz that is happening around the AI. So when Monica joined, the AI was actually a lot of hype that you should get into this industry as soon as possible, and it's gonna give you a lot of growth. It's gonna give you a lot of opportunities. It's a land of opportunities, something like that. And we all went together and got our jobs actually into this industry. So I just want to highlight that this is not always true. The buzz is there, but it's a little bit too noisy. So I want to just downplay the AI role in that. Second, I want to talk about how can we make AI useful. That is, how can we use what exists in the industry, what exists in the open source community, and actually build something useful out of it that is going to add value in the future. Next, I'm going to talk about which areas you should focus in the AI or in the machine learning data science domain. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about how can we understand the industry's demand. What are the businesses looking forward to? What are the key stakeholders of these businesses are looking forward to? And how can AI add value to that particular niche? At last, I'm going to give some you can say some intro to what skills you can acquire and how you can acquire them, and which will give you a lot of edge once you start building your resume or once you start applying for jobs in the AI industry. So without further ado, let's get started with the first part, which is snoozing the buzz. Now, how important is the AI question of the century? Well, it's pretty important. I cannot deny the fact it has been used in a lot of sectors. It has been used in autonomous vehicles. It's been used in healthcare industry, in the you can say technology world. Everywhere you can see a lot of AI being played out. But how actually important is the machine learning or data science component within the entire ecosystem is a real question, right? Now, if you think that getting a good model is all about AI, you are on a wrong path. Actually, putting that model to use for the people, for the purpose, is the real deal with the AI. If you can make AI friendly, if you can make AI integrated into an existing ecosystem, if you can make AI useful for the general public, then you can say that, okay, you have made the AI useful. Now, this is a disconnect that I've usually seen from my experience from the folks who are trying to get into the industry versus what the business demands. Business wants someone who can put these tools to use. But what we are offering is basically a list of all the tech stacks that we can work on. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how you should position yourself when it comes to the job applications, or even when you want to start in this field. I come to that, but first, uh, What skills do you think you need in an AI industry, right? And I'm going to combine these two questions together in the last section. But moving forward, I just want to briefly, okay, talk about when I was talking about that, I want to make AI useful. How can we think of making it useful, or what does useful even mean, right? Now, it's a common thing. I think we have faced in our industry as well as in colleges. Also, I've seen people doing that. That they try to get the best model and apply it to some sort of data and code it as one of the best performances they can get. But I beg to differ. We are always looking for what solutions we can use, what sort of solutions we can apply, but we really need to be looking for what problems we need to solve, not the other way around. If there's a problem in the industry that requires your attention, or let's say if there's a image recognition problem, you should not be looking towards state of the art AI model for a better image classification accuracy. Should be looking at what exactly that problem is trying to solve for. Is there a better way other than AI? Can I make a baseline out of it? Can I use a very, very simple model? Can I change the data? Can I process the data a little differently? That is all what you need to ask before even applying a model. So AI comes later. First, you need to understand the problem in its all context. Next is that don't chase state of the art solutions. A very common mistake, we go for a problem and we look at, okay, what is the best solution that exists? And we go forward to that model and apply it. It's good to use state of the art models, but first you need to, as I was talking about, understand the problem and create a very simple model. Or even before that, you can, depending upon a problem, look at the human level performance. For example, if it's an image classification task, what is the human level performance of classifying image A versus image B? Can human identify with 90% accuracy? If yes, then what is my baseline model doing? Is my baseline model performing at 85%? Then yes, there is a lot of scope for improvement. You can actually get to 90%, even surpass that performance. How are you going to do that? Are you going to change the model? Are you going to change the parameters? Are you going to change the data? Can you make it more processable for the machine? Is the question you need to really ask. Then create POCs. Now, I can't emphasize enough on the importance of POCs, because what we usually do is that we straight away jump into the problem, create a rough solution out of it, and just give it to the people, give it to the business. Okay, this is what I've been working on, and it works. No, that's not how you do it. That's how you do it when you're developing a POC. And POC is basically a small proof of concept that you may be aware of building in a Jupyter notebook, for example. You get all your assumptions together, you get all your hypotheses together, you start to build a baseline and a top of a baseline model, and you have something ready that can actually solve for the problem. Now that's a POC, and that's what you want to give it to the people. And if that gets approved, then you start on building the AI model that can actually be useful in the industry. Now, there's a whole lot of processes and a whole lot of technology that goes into picture for deploying a POC to the deployment. Sorry, from the POC to the deployment, but that's for a different talk. But what I wanted to emphasize here is that you should create as many POCs as possible, because your first POC, even though you have worked a lot on that, might not be useful, might just be, you can say, a wasted effort. So don't hesitate to discard your efforts, right? It's a common mistake that I have seen from my experience, and even I have done that. That I love my code. When I write the code, and I'm like, okay, I've done so much effort on this. I have created this notebook. I have created these scripts. Why not just use them? Why are we discarding it, right? But that's not the point. You create something to get a value out of it, right? Your goal is to get a value out of something. And once you have prepared, let's say, a baseline, or let's say you have prepared a rough code for solving a problem, it might not get used in the actual production. And don't feel bad about it, right? Because your job was not to uh, not your job was not to get your code into production, but to create a value out of it. So create many POCs. Some will work, some won't work, and don't hesitate to discard the previous effort that you have made. That is how you can make AI useful for everyone. That is how you can make AI useful for the business problem that you're trying to solve for. Now, what are the focus areas that you need to look forward to, right? And this is very specific to your data science domain because I've been working in the core data science domain for past 2 years. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can create more value when you are working on these areas. EDA, the exploratory data analysis part, is very, very crucial to any data science machine learning project. Without understanding the data, without understanding the implications of the data, you cannot proceed forward. You need to get a data, you need to understand it, and you need to create a story out of it, right? Do an EDA like you are composing a novel, I would say, because you have to create a plot out of it. You have to analyze data and present some, you can say, hypothesis that maybe this is how this data is trying to represent this particular outcome, or what is my hypothesis with, say, let's these set of features. This is a very important part when you have to create a story, when you have to create a use case or even a business case for your models. You have to get your story aligned. That is the very first part. And again, you have to test it. You don't have to hesitate to test it. You have a story, you need to test it thoroughly. You have to apply all the statistical testing methods to see that the results are working out. The next is data gathering. Let's say you have a story, but somewhere you are finding, okay, there's a disconnect between data point A and B. Maybe I need more data from this particular machine or this particular, you can say, an area or any sub segment. So what do? You want to see that do you really need a data, or do you want to spend time to maybe clean the data a little bit, or is it adding any value? After asking that question, then you have to get into data gathering phase. And once you gather data, it's very important that you can process it well, right? Because what happens usually is that people get the data and they just try to just put it into a machine learning model as raw as possible and hope to get better results. But the real thing lies between the data processing, how you process the data, what are the features that you have engineered, what is your hypothesis behind them, and are they indicated of any business metric? Do we have any past record of them? In the past, have those signals worked? And you have to continually check their health. That, okay, today the data is, let's say, if you're working in a sales and marketing industry, your data is going to change every single day. I have worked in sales and marketing industry. I have worked for Microsoft in enhancing their potential leads, enhancing the potential quality of leads. But what happens is that your data changes every day. There will be a lot of component of data that will change. There will be a lot of concept drift, data drift in the data itself. So you have to continually assess how my data has changed and whether you want to retrain your models or not. That's what you have to do on, let's say, a weekly cadence, at least I would say, when you're developing a solution. Because if the data changes and the model remains the same, you might see different results in production because of changed trend in the data. So this is very important that you keep a track on how the data is right now and what's going to be the data state in the future, or how it differs from today as compared to tomorrow. You need to create some checks for that. The next thing is the experiment tracking. Let's say you have the data sorted out, you have this all process, featureized, clean data. Now you want to build a model. And how you build a model basically is that you create experiments, right? You don't know at first that which model is going to work the best. You don't know at first what parameters will work the best for this model. So what you do is that you get a baseline model, and that's why I was saying that you should start with a baseline. You get a very, very simple baseline model with some standard parameters and see that, okay, what is the benchmark performance that I can get out of this baseline model? What is my benchmark baseline performance? What is my benchmark human level performance? And what is my scope of improvement from here to there? This is what you have to think of. And how you do that is that you tweak the parameters of the base model, you get new models, and the important thing is that you log it. You log its metrics, you log its hyperparameters, and you see that, okay, for these set of parameters of this model and given this constant data, this is my performance I'm getting. And you do it a lot of times. You might have 5 different models with different set of parameters, and you create pipelines for the experiment. You don't have to manually tweak every model and parameters. You can create pipelines for these purposes. So experimentation tracking and a metric logging is also very important part when you are developing a model after your data gathering, processing, and featureization. So we have talked two important things here. One is about data and one is about model, how we can prepare data and how we can prepare model. The third thing is a little bit different off topic, but I want to really emphasize on this one because this is a very emerging thing and not a lot of people are paying attention to this one, which is cloud and ML ops. Why am I saying cloud is because the amount of computation required to run these AI models at scale for the businesses, it can't happen on your local computers and it's very expensive to do it on premise servers. So cloud is the only way forward. And we have a lot of, I mean, not a lot of, but three most prominent cloud providers: AWS, GCP, and Azure. So I would definitely recommend you to check them out, either of them, learn how they are working, learn what services they are offering, and how they are helping you to deliver your machine learning POC model that you had in your Jupyter notebook at the first to a production ready deployable model for the business. Now, there's a huge gap from POC to deployment, but it's a lot of it's a big journey ahead. But cloud is an integral part of it. So do pay attention to the cloud. The second component of this journey is the MLOps. MLOps is basically machine learning operations. Just like DevOps, you have MLOps, right? And the added component to DevOps in MLOps is that you have two more things to handle. Earlier in DevOps, you just had code, you had your algorithms, you can do it easily, right? But in MLOps, the trick is that you have to handle data as well as your model. These are the two things that MLOps really focuses on: how you can make sure that data does not change, there is not a whole lot of drift, and if there's a drift, do I need to retrain the model? How do I set up my pipelines, my processes? How do I make sure that my system health is maintained, my model is not performing any worse in the ecosystem? All these things you track and you get on. This is MLOps. I'm gonna I'm not going to talk about MLOps a lot in detail right now because it's a really, really vast topic, and there's not a whole lot of clarity in the industry about MLOps as it's just an emerging field. So just keep an eye out on these two things because these are really going to help you get into the AI industry for sure. The next thing I'm going to talk about is how do we get the demand, right? Because what I know is that maybe I know my machine learning stuff. I know how to do data processing. I know how to create models. I know how to log them. All the things that I talked about in the last slide, in the last topic, we know that, let's say. But the next point comes is that how do I apply that? Okay, maybe I know that I can deploy a model in production, but how do I actually get into the business? That is a real deal because if you can't make AI useful for the businesses, it is as good as dead, right? And the first thing I will say is that, as I was talking earlier, is that focus on the problems, not on the solution. Get with the business stakeholders, get with your client, sit with them, understand what problem they are trying to solve. How have they solved it in the past? What are the solutions that they're looking forward to? What are the challenges that they're facing in the current problem proposals? Understand the problem to the depth, then try to create, again, I would say, a baseline model. Create a baseline model to see how it can solve their problems. Because what happens is that businesses want things simple. They don't want overcomplicated things. They don't want your multi-layered neural network. They just want their problems to get solved. This is what important. Your solution doesn't matter. Your efficiency in solving the problem and how well you solve the problem is all what matters. And AI is just helping you out there, right? Understand that first. The potential of AI is only as good as the solution you can provide. If solution B that is not AI based is better than solution A which is AI based, solution B is gonna be going ahead, right? Because of its implications. You have to keep it simple. You have to understand the problem, and then you have to propose a potential AI solution. It could be as simple as an XGBoost model, or it could be as complex as a multi-layered deep neural network. Depends upon the problem, depends upon what are the goals of the business. And talking about the goals of the business, I would say choose the right metrics. It is very important to choose the right metrics in this one. Because what happens is that you may have a very good model, right, that is giving you, let's say, 90% accuracy on your entire test set, or even you are getting it's one of the best models that you have prepared, let's say. But let's say what happens is that next day your stakeholder comes to you and says that this is what I wanted. I wanted the model to have a little more variance. I wanted it to, let's say, give me more quality of, let's say, output. Let's say a higher probability of, let's say, a particular segment falling into this category, right? So in the data, you must have seen that there are, but in structured data, especially, you must have seen that there are multiple domains, right? And within each domain, you might have different subdomains, and within subdomains, you might have subdomains. For example, there could be a domain at area level. For example, there could be a domain at your geography level, right? So maybe a model is performing 90% at an overall level, but let's say for a particular geography, it is not performing as good as you might have expected. Maybe it's performing 95% for India, and maybe it's performing, let's say, 50% for US. Could be the case, because your data is huge, right? And you have to really check into each individual segment of the data, how it is performing. So that is very important that you sit with the business, you discuss what metrics they are trying to solve for, how is the model solving for those metrics, and are there any other metrics apart from the standard performance metrics that you can think of. For example, businesses might want to have more number of uh, more number of potential customers, instead of having just a higher quality of customers. Maybe they are having a sales season where they are inviting as many as customers they can, uh, offer their services to. It could happen that their goals might change with time. So you need to really, really sit with the businesses, align with their goals, and understand exactly what problem they're trying to solve for and how you can add value to that problem. This is the point of emphasis that should be taken from our point of view towards the businesses. The last thing I want to talk about, how we can bridge this divide. Okay, so far we have looked at what skills do we think we need, what skills are actually in demand, and how businesses are looking forward to use those skills, and how we can propose these businesses how we can use these skills, right? But the question comes, how do I bridge this demand? And as freshers, you must have noticed that it's hard to get into AI analytics industry. And even for very entry level roles, these AI analytics industry are demanding, let's say, PhDs or people with experiences, right? And why is that? It's because this does not require your coding skills, because this definitely, there's a lot of coding involved when you're working in deployment ready models, but there are a lot of things that go beyond coding which help you succeed in this industry. Coding is there, you need analytical skills, you need a strong analytical skills, right? You can analyze data, test your hypothesis, do statistical tests, report the metrics, do performance testing. A lot of things happen with the analysis, so analytics is very, very important skill along with coding. Then comes the soft skills, how you communicate with your clients, how do you communicate with your stakeholders, are you able to convert your technology heavy definition of something to a 5-year old definition? So how can you simplify things for the stakeholders, how you can simplify things for the business, how you can collaborate with team, how you can communicate your results effectively, how you can gather every team together and work toward a common goal. These are the skills that are very, very important in this industry, because AI is a collaborative effort. It's not something that one person can do. You always need a team for that. You need team of specialized people in, let's say, someone is specialized in cloud, someone is specialized in, let's say, analytics, someone is specialized in hypothesis testing. You need a big team. And how do you communicate with a team? How do you bring them together? How do you collaborate? Is the key to succeed in the AI industry. You need to offer a service that can actually be useful for the people. And again, that's why you need cloud also. You need to, and there's a lot of benefits of cloud. It's high availability, elasticity. So you need to use cloud as well. You need to know cloud skills. You need to know how can you deploy a model in the cloud, how you can use that model anywhere in the world. It's gonna be very, very crucial for you. So cloud technology is gonna be a very important skill for you when you when you're actually jumping into the AI analytics industry. And one common advice I can offer you is that you can perhaps look at some certifications. You can try doing some certification in the cloud of your choice, look at which one is popular, and do some certifications that you can show your potential employer that, okay, I know something, I can tinker around this cloud a bit. And that's how you structure, that's how you present yourself. You show your myriad skills on your resume if you're applying, and have ready these skills. Try to talk to as many people as possible. Try to work in large team, not large but maybe 5 to 6 at least members must be there in a team to develop your soft skills. Try to manage a team, try to lead a project, try to analyze data, right? All these things will help you get a bigger picture point of view when you're working in an AI project. And with that, I would also warn you of the pitfalls in the AI industry is that it might seem cool to get into the industry, right? It might seem that, okay, this is a very cool thing and I want to do, but you need to be aware of its potential pitfalls also, because there are things that you might not like. It might not be the thing that you want to do. So do your research, do your due diligence research in that, and see that whether you really want to jump into the industry, or are you only jumping because it's a cool aid, because it might taste sweet but you will get the cavities the next day. And with that, I would like to conclude this talk. Uh, Monica, anything else? Hi, Monica, you're on mute, I guess.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay, so I'm always confused about like which cloud provider is the best service to provide AI ML use cases. So do you have any points about like which cloud provider we need to choose for the specifically the AI ML use cases?
Well, I'm too naive to answer that question. Of course, everyone is trying to sell their products, I would say. So it's really the case that which cloud provider that you at the very entry level, I would say you can start with anything because the skills are transferable. It's not that one cloud provider is the best. So what you have learned for Azure can be applied in AWS as well. So for the very beginning, you can start with either of them, and once you get into the industry, you can develop your expertise in whichever cloud service you are comfortable with. It's about you. With whichever you're comfortable with, you can start, and what your team uses is also important. It depends upon the comfort level of your team as well.
Yeah, it makes sense. And one another question. So it's very always curious about like, what's the main use case, like the very common use case in AI industries or ML industries? Like, what's like, we have e-commerce and we have like an NLP side project. So, like in your 2 years of experience, what you have seen the most common use case in this industry? So we should have practice on like the early age early students can work on that use cases specifically.
So that's a good question. What use cases do AI solve for? So, as I was saying earlier, that it's not about the it's not about the solution, right? It's about the use cases, right?
Yeah.
And let's say I have primarily worked in sales and marketing domain, so you can work on actually any problem you want, like literally any problem. It doesn't matter. You just need to think that, okay, whichever problem I am working on, is the AI right tool in that problem. You can pick up a sales and marketing problem, you can pick up an image segmentation problem, you can make perhaps customer churn problem, whichever you want. Just stick to it, take a problem, try to create a baseline, then see how you can go forward with that. That's all what matters.
Yeah, like I always like I'm seeing like most of the students jump into like time series data or
Mm.
the healthcare data, and that data is so much complicated that we know. So I
Yeah, I
think
know,
so we
Monica, you
should.
have a bias against healthcare data. You like working on healthcare data. So,
Yeah.
but that's not the
So
point. You can read more any data. So, it also depends upon what you're ambitious about, right? For example,
yeah,
I'm ambitious about say, genetics, for example, let's say. And I'm going to look at, okay, what are the genetics problem that are there, right? You can look at the problems, right? What problems exist in this, let's say, domain, right? For example, if
yeah.
Monica is interested in your, let's say, cancer, right? You want to see solve for cancer, right? For example, so you look for, okay, what are the problems that are existing in the cancer detection ecosystem,
Yeah.
right? And how can I maybe make something useful for that, or maybe not even create a model, let's say. Maybe let's say if there's a some let's say if there's a doctor, right, that you know of, and let's say he's a cancer specialist, right? How can I help that guy? How can I, let's say, make an app for him? For example, you have to think of something like that. You have to think
Yeah.
for the entire end-to-end delivery. So this is going to be really important at what you are passionate about as well.
Yeah, because I'm seeing on LinkedIn, on Twitter, some people are so excited about the trends, like healthcare data is for a time being, healthcare data is was like a trend, like we need to work on it or something like that.
Yeah.
So for me, I think so. If I advise someone to work on, so just start with e-commerce website, because in my experience, I have seen most of the companies is working on the e-commerce data.
Mhm.
So I think that is the perfect start for getting into the data science or the AML thing. And one other thing I need to ask, what's your thought about the computer vision thing? Because I'm so afraid to get into that industry. I have worked on, but the data is so less.
Yeah, so one thing that I can say is that don't focus on the data in a computer vision, I would say. Focus on the quality of data, right? I haven't worked explicitly in computer vision, but from my experience and from what I've seen as it's working and from the very minimal experience that I have, I would say focus on the data, right? People can develop great models out of limited data if the data quality is, you can say, pristine. You need to look at yours, how, I mean, are you able to convey what you want to convey for the ML model? Let's say if you look at an image, right? If you look at, let's say you have a phone and there's a scratch, right? But let's say the lighting conditions are poor and it's very
Yeah,
dark. Even a human cannot tell that whether there's a scratch on the phone, right? For example.
yeah,
So you need to prepare that data is clean, it's good. And what you want to get out of it, the unstructured data that what you want to get out of it, it should be there so that machine model can pick it up, right? So
yeah,
yeah, computer vision definitely worth do it. It's great. It's very very useful industry. But also be aware that, I mean, talking about cloud also, right? Even these cloud services, the cloud vendors that we have, they have their computer vision services already, right? So let's say if you're into business and you're, let's say, spending 3 months developing a very very basic computer vision system that's not even deployable, but then someone tells you that there's a better model that exists in cloud and you can just use it, right? So
yeah.
just go for it, right? If you're solving for a business. Now it actually depends upon that your data might be very different. For example, very very specific niche of data that you have to create a model, train it, but definitely worth a try.
Yeah, so because I have worked on computer vision, so it was like almost the hurdle we have faced is only the data. We've
Mhm.
we have worked with a lot of bad data, so yeah, the data is ultimately the problem. Okay, so we have some of the questions from the audience, so let's take them.
Sure.
So the first question is by Aman Sharma. How should someone from non-computer background go about career in AI?
How about someone who non-computer background? Okay, so it doesn't matter which background you're coming from, honestly, when you're jumping into AI industry, right? So also I would just say that in the AI industry itself, the demand is variable, right? Someone might be looking for a core data scientist, someone might be looking for, let's say, a machine learning engineer, someone might be looking for a full stack data scientist, right? So start by very, very, you can say,
General,
different
like
domains, right? For
data
example, getting
analytics. You can start with data analytics, maybe.
start the analytics first. Like
Yeah,
you can actually start building up, you can say, timelines for yourself, which areas you want to work on. For example, one could be that, okay, maybe I want to work on the analytics part of it. Get an internship, best part. Get an
yeah,
internship in analytics industry, right? In the meanwhile, get a, I mean, I don't focus too much on courses, but if you're coming from non-computer science background, maybe start with a very simple course, right? Start simple course that can teach you the ropes of the machine learning and AI. Learn a bit of coding. There are a lot of coding practice websites such as HackerRank, CodeChef. Get your hands on that. You can learn coding on your own. You don't need a computer science background to get into the AI industry.
yeah,
I have personally seen people from all different backgrounds into the AI industry, and they are doing
right.
very, very well for themselves. Even
Yeah,
Monica is not from the computer science background, if I'm
I
correct.
am.
But you have electronics, right?
No, no, I am.
Not bad. Maybe I was talking thinking about something. Okay, okay. My I have another friend that she's not from, she's from electronics industry, right?
Yeah,
But she's doing
yeah,
way way better. better in data science, right? So it's not about which background you come from. It's a point that okay, if you know what you want to work on, you can get into that. Computer science important, analytics important, mathematics very important
Very
for study.
important.
So don't ignore that. People always ignore mathematics. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And the
I
last
I
part,
I also ignored mathematics. Like then I lately realized that it is the main part. I ignored
yeah,
like a so that was my
right.
first mistake.
Yeah, I learned from others' mistakes. Aman, I would say mathematics is very important, and the
Very
last part
important.
I would say is soft skills is super duper important. The
Yeah.
storytelling and soft skills are very important.
That is also very important because if you are not able to tell your or like present your data in like a story, then I don't think so it's worth it.
You have to sell it basically,
Yeah.
and learn how to sell it.
Because our vendors don't understand the technical terms of the algorithm and the what which
Mm,
method we have solved our problem. So it's very important to present the whole story of data, whole solution, like a very simple story. So yeah, it's
mhm.
very important. So another question, like we have some Siddhant, so he has the same question about how he can get into the AI industry. So we have already tell. So another question we have, how to improve analytical skills by Prachi Bindal.
How can you improve your analytical skills? Grab
Yes.
a data, I would say. Simply. Just get a data, create a story out of it. How I did was that simply you go to Kaggle or you go to any, you can say open source data repositories, right? Get a data and start to create a story out of it, right? As I was saying that you need to compose a story. So let's say if you're writing something, right? How do you create a story? You have a beginning, right? You have a story building, you have a climax, you have an end, right? Something like that. That's how you need to understand the data, right? Get with that, start saying, okay, what is the grain of the data, for example, right? What level the data is on? How many areas does this data present? Are there any biases in the data? Are the data, let's say, points telling something? Or do I have an hypothesis, for example, it's data, right? For example, if you're solving for a lead prioritization that I've worked on, our hypothesis is that okay, how are the quality of leads varying on different segments, right? Which segment we need to prioritize on? Or let's say if a model is giving prediction X, why it is giving prediction X, what happened in data. So you backtrack, you can do forward analysis as well, or you can do a backtracking analysis as well. If you have a model already, okay, have set of results, you look at what happened and you try to make sense out of it. That's how you can improve your analytical skills. And one more thing I would say is that learn Excel.
Yeah, that's what I about to say. Like just tell about something about the Excel, how there is
Learn
important.
Excel
Yeah.
is so crucial, and I really wish if there was an alternative to an Excel right now because, but for businesses you need to learn Excel. Your analytical skills are also, I mean, attenuated if you don't know Excel, right? Because if you can't get a data and do your sorcery on that, it's not useful. So Excel is actually a good tool where you can get the data and do all kinds of you know analysis, and even you can create charts out of it. So learn Excel as well apart from those skills.
Like this is also one of my mistake, like ignoring Excel totally a lot. I thought like we can learn Excel, it is like a normal skill, so I thought like that. So then I jump into the industry, then the use of Excel is what, like everyone is doing like a they are creating whole dashboard into the ZS. Sorry,
Right.
Excel, sorry, Excel. So
No,
yeah,
but Excel
so
is very important. It's a lot of learn. We may think that okay, we may have a very simple formula understanding of Excel, but it goes a lot deep than you imagine. It's very,
yeah,
very useful.
very important. Okay, so I think we are getting from our time, so we don't have any other questions. So any other thing you want to share to the community, or something like that? So now then, if not, then we can wrap this up.
Just one small thing I just want to reiterate on that. Don't get into the AI industry if it seems cool, right?
Cool. Yeah.
Many people make that mistake and they switch back their jobs. I have seen people doing that. They don't
Yeah.
like it because it might get a lot of redundant for you. As I was saying, there's a lot of tracking, experimentation, logging process going on, right? So be very sure of what you're jumping into. Do your due diligence research and then only jump into it, because it's a trend. Trends come and go, but what you're passionate about and what the industry demands is very important. You need to understand the market before you start making your career into it. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, so with that, any books you can just recommend to the students that
Books, you're
they can
saying?
read, uh, any related to AI or any analytics, any code, something like that.
Well, not exactly. I'm not a very well. I mean, I haven't
Yeah,
studied my AI. I haven't been on my AI journey through books, right? I have always been an avid fan of Andrew Ng. I have been looking out for all of his courses. I've done his basic machine learning. I've done his deep learning course, and I'm right now doing its MLOps course right now. So I'm kind of a fan of this guy, and I study him. And also, I want to show that I want to point out that many people have different learning styles, right? I am very comfortable with videos, some are very comfortable with books, right? So I don't know many good books on that, sorry for that, but if you want some courses or if you want some reading materials, feel free to reach out to me, I can share that with you.
yeah. Okay, so with that, I think we need to wrap it up. So thank you, Harjot Power. It was a great, amazing talk with you. And yeah, see you in the next meetup. Bye.
Sure. Bye.